This is going to be a classic. It's 1 hour, 54 minutes, and 22 seconds. I'll give you a countdown. I'll do 3, 2, 1. And when I say play, we'll press play. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play.
It as the greatest champion of all time, but if there's any man that is any better prepared than Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, I have not seen him. He's on top of his game, and this is a game of peaking at the right time. And I feel like right now, at this particular moment in time, if anybody can unseat Ric Flair from that coveted World's Heavyweight title, it is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Ladies and gentlemen, these men are certainly no strangers to each other. Let's take a video look and see exactly how this match came about tonight. There you see, fans, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat making his
return
debut in the studios of Superstation TBS.
January.
Tag team event. And here we see him taking over on Nature Boy Ric Flair. And it was at this point in time, Steamboat returning for the first time to the NWA and making his presence certainly known. These men certainly no strangers to each other. And right here, we see the Dragon really taking over on the Nature Boy.
He's got it all under control. The man is tuned in. He's talked about destiny. He talks about this is what he's worked his whole career to get to this particular.
You can pull the volume down here, Steve. This is really the dying days of the WCW or the old Techwood Drive show, is it not? It feels like it was probably at its peak, 85, 86. But by 89, it was on the downhill slide. Would you agree with that? Oh, this is the great stuff. Let's track this audio here, Steve.
I want you to take one last look at what a loser looks like. Why don't you go home and help the missus with the dishes, pal? I'm going downtown.
Well, right there was all that Ricky Steamboat could stand. Ric Flair strutting his stuff. This was just past Wednesday night in Cleveland, Ohio, and it really broke loose between the world's champion and that $1,500 silk suit and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Well, you know, there's two different psychologies about the sport, two different priorities, and Ricky Steamboat has definitely said that family is first. All his priorities in the right place, and he is going to bring the battle to all the people across the country to Ric Flair that he's ever wanted to have.
And right here we see Steamboat undressing the heavyweight champion of the world. Steamboat infuriated that Flair would insult his family and Steamboat's integrity. And this is what has happened this past Wednesday night that really added.
Our shit was too good.
So you're watching this back. Is this the first time you've seen this back, this clip?
Probably not, but I'd forgotten how good we were.
Crowd is going bananas here for this Clash of the Champions.
Steamboat, look at himself. He says so good, my God.
I realize that it's in fashion to dunk on.
Look at him. He kills me. It's so damn good. Unbelievable.
Trying to get that shirt off around the Rolex. Hope you don't lose the watch.
Yeah, I know. If they had that on Raw last night, they would be getting a 4 today.
Big old press slam.
Yeah. God, he was good.
Man, you guys have such a pace, just non-stop action.
Nobody's even breathing deep there.
And he hooks the leg after the crossbody. Of course, nobody made a count.
Hero.
What do you think of the pairing of you and Hero here in '89?
I couldn't stand it, but he was George Scott's friend, and I think George just promised to make a spot for him.
I see.
God damn, look at those punches, man! Come on, guys. It's just a lesson in fundamentals.
No doubt about it, man. This is classic stuff. The heels double teaming, holding him back. Of course, here we are now, live action. Hopefully you're watching along with us on Peacock or maybe over on YouTube. If you didn't already, go subscribe to the YouTube channel here where you can see Rick and I do the show every single week and see Rick's face as he's having a good time here.
It is fun to look back. You forget.
And what a cool robe this was. I think it's one of the only ones I saw that had short sleeves at the top.
Yeah, it happened. That's one of you know what, Steamboat and I, we were on tour in Germany, and we drank all the way back from Munich to Charlotte, and somehow I left the roll on the plane. By the time I got back through customs, it was gone. This is the one that one of my wives didn't lift.
Well, there's a whole lot of ladies there wondering who can be next. And I think if I remember right, somebody you're pretty familiar with is going to hand you some flowers here.
Yep, Cleopatra.
Of course, that's Charlotte's mom right there, Miss
Yeah,
Beth.
Miss Beth. Yeah, she was smoking back then, huh?
Well, I don't think it was your speed to hang around with anybody who wasn't.
No, I meant she's very lovely now, but I meant she was absolutely stunning back then.
Now, of course, this is a compare and contrast, you know, good guy versus bad guy, the family man versus the playboy, if you will. And of course, you're Rick. It's your wife
That
is
was the whole setup. That was the whole damn setup.
your wife.
The family man versus the wild man.
Flair, you're here with a bevy of women, and just to drill in the idea that oh, you're the playboy. Meanwhile, I think Ricky actually came to the ring with his wife and baby boy, the future Richie Steamboat.
Yep.
I don't hear his name very often these days. Do you know what's up with Richie Steamboat in 2022?
I absolutely do not. I know that I think he married a lawyer, and in Charlotte. I'm not really sure.
ProWrestlingMusings.com put out a graphic a while back celebrating this match, and they broke it down almost like it was a UFC, and it was so close. They showed that Ricky Steamboat had 51% of the match's offense. You had 49%. And they went all the way down. Like he had 45 strikes. You had 37. He had 12 strike downs. You had 5. I mean, it's pretty remarkable when people study these matches and go back and give stats as if it was an NFL contest or a UFC or a boxing match or whatever.
Well, what he and I did, we were so tight, you couldn't see anything through us. You know, I still to this day, if you shoot a guy off the ropes, why in the hell would you stand in the middle of the ring and wait for him to come back and give you a tackle?
Right.
You shoot him off, you follow him in. I mean, it just makes sense. You know, Sean used to call me the king of the short shoot, but why would you stand in the middle of the ring? And I mean, I even struggle with the drop down right here. I mean, everybody loved it for cosmetics, but why would you drop down, leapfrog, drop down, leapfrog? We did, but it was just because that was part of the entertainment part of the match. But as far as being close to each other, we just stayed close and tight. You couldn't see through it. And that's what made a big difference for us. And it, as it would today if we ever did it again.
Our old pal Dave Meltzer's sitting for this one, and there's the Chicago Bears Brad
Meltzer.
I think Kurt Beckler's with him.
Yep. Stanford University. You know what else was there that night? Jim Harbaugh.
Really?
That's where I met Jim. Yeah.
That's cool, man.
He was a quarterback for the Bears then.
Now, this is the time where I should at least mention JJ Dillon has recently left. He's gone to work for Vince as well. Was it a big blow to see JJ leave?
Yes, it was for me. I hated it. I've always been really fond of JJ. I thought that, you know, it's just nothing against Hero. You never want to say anything, but Hero and I just weren't that. It was JJ and me as a manager, or Bobby. Right. Hero just was in the right place at the right time, and George was a very respectable guy and respected his friends. And I respected Hero. We just weren't a good. It just didn't look normal.
It's probably also worth mentioning, as crazy as this sounds now in 2022, in 1989, the late 80s, there was a lot of conversation about how the Japanese economy was going to overtake the American economy because we were buying import cars and we were buying electronics. And this is when you started to hear really loud and proud, you need to buy products that are made in the USA. And the idea that you had aligned yourself with a Japanese corporation, it almost felt like you were saying, yeah, but I'd rather be with the imports. That was a big deal.
Nobody gave me an import though. I never got a deal. Like I haven't got one with Rolex, alligator shoes. Nobody.
I mean, by now it does feel like you should be sponsored by Rolex, Ferragamo, Mercedes.
Everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Ricky really tears you up with chops here. Besides Wahoo McDaniel, is Ricky number 2 when it comes to delivering hard chops your way?
Him or Garvin.
Wow, yeah, that's a great one.
Garvin used to pound it out of me. I used to wear Vaseline on my chest from Garvin. Not Vaseline, Neosporin. Because I'd be bleeding every night. I just, the mats weren't as clean as they are now, always, because of outdoor shows and that. But I was fortunate; I never got anything.
Of course, once upon
You
a time,
see how athletic he is there, sliding like that, and
yes,
he could drop. He could do anything. And we just had. He understood the cosmetic effect of everything we did. If you're gonna do a headlock, you don't want to go over the guy's ass. You want to go over his back.
right.
I mean, it's easier to go over someone's back, but it's easier to put your hand on his hip and go over the top of his back, and it looks better. And he understood all that, and that's just stuff you don't learn in a wrestling school now. You know what I mean? Those are the finer things that define a guy that can really work or a great worker, as opposed to someone that is going through the motions, can do all the high flying, but it can't punch, can't kick, and doesn't have a clue about keeping yourself close to your opponent.
Talk to me about Dave Meltzer. We mentioned he's sitting ringside here. What's your
First
relationship?
time I met him.
First time you met him right here?
Yeah, we're walking on, and I thought he was a little power lifter or something. I said, "What are you?" I thought it was Brad
Brad
Meltzer's trainer or something, right? Because Dave had a good physique and all that. And he goes, "I'm Dave Meltzer," and I went, and the magazine guy. And he said, "Yeah." And he was also a very nice guy. That's the first time I'd gotten to know him.
These chops here, man, legendary. Even today, all these years later, anytime anyone throws one in the business, the entire crowd goes woo. Do you think that's probably your biggest legacy in wrestling? The woo on every chop. I mean, in any language, they're still doing it.
I would have to think so. Yeah, unfortunately, it certainly wasn't my dive off the top rope or my moonsault.
This match goes 23 minutes and change. Of course, you were legendary for being the 60-minute man when you were doing the territories. You did a lot of 60-minute draws. 23 minutes here on pay-per-view. Is that the right amount of time for this match? Do you wish you had more time?
Yeah, I think they gave too much time in a couple of other matches. I wish we'd had about 30. You can see that we could have gone. The crowd actually got into it the longer we went.
Yes.
Because they could see it was a real war. And it was. He never backed up an inch. Never took a deep breath. You never see him struggling or me taking him over to catch his breath or vice versa.
It is pretty crazy to look back at the match times on this. I think Sting and Butch Reed, you guys only got 5 more minutes than them. So certainly a few more minutes this way wouldn't have been.
Well, they trust me. Butch could work. Was a really good worker, as was Steve. But I just think that the world title deserved more time. But that's neither here nor there. We made the best of it. We certainly could have gone longer.
Politically, talk to me about when you knew you were going to lose the belt here. Is this something that the decision is brought to you weeks ahead of time, months ahead of time, or did you say, "Hey, why don't I drop it to Steamboat"? What's that look like?
No, I suggested it. Yeah, I suggested it, and then I think that we decided that I can't remember how it came out, but he did sign a short-term deal,
Right.
and then the reason it changed is because I can't remember. You'll have to ask him, or I'll ask him. I think he just had enough of the business.
I think it was talked about once upon a time that you signed a contract extension backstage at this show right before the event. Do you remember that?
At this show?
I thought so.
No, that's with me and Hulk at Halloween Havoc.
Okay.
When I retired in the cage with Bill Shaw. No, I'll tell you what. We want to know the truth. You know why Ricky didn't come back? Because I heard.
I knew that once this trilogy was over and it finishes in Nashville, it's immediately transitioning to Terry Funk in that
Yeah.
spot, and immediately they put Ricky Steamboat in a feud with Lex Luger for the U.S. title. It
Yeah.
probably felt like a bit of a demotion at that time to go from the world title to the U.S. title.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly, but at the same time, I think that's part of the Jim Herd thing, you know. I don't think he really saw how good or what Steamboat meant, or maybe he couldn't get along with Bonnie. I can't remember.
Well, I know that it's been in fashion to dunk on Herd, and by all means, this is your show, so feel free. But I'm thankful that we got this trilogy of matches with you guys in '89, and that happened on Herd's watch.
No, I know. I'm saying I'm not dumping on her by any means. I don't think that it's no secret he didn't know a lot about wrestling.
Right.
Being the station manager, not at KPLR, did not make him a mastermind um, on booking or how to be. But I just think that he just thought that me and Steamboat, what you saw what happened a year later, were just old guys needed to be gone,
Right.
and that's exactly how it came about. I think I was 40 here, right? 89.
Yeah, you would have just turned 40.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's 4 years younger than I am, right? 5 years younger?
The show has 8,000 paid attendance here. It does a 1.5 buy rate. Do you remember afterwards I mean, obviously you're happy with the match, but do you remember the office thinking that this was a success?
I don't remember it. I wasn't even aware of stuff back then.
You
I
gotta,
mean, the pay-per-view and that.
right.
1.5, so that how many viewers is that?
Let me take a look here.
1.2 million?
What are you thinking of this match as you're watching it back? I mean, is this all just second nature to you guys at this point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because you've done so many?
Mhm. Yeah, when you wrestle someone that great so many times, it's just fine.
130,000 buys is the
Uh-huh.
number.
How much?
130,000 folks bought it.
100 and what?
130,000.
130,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wrestle
So,
War in Nashville did 120,000. Great American Bash, which people still talk about to this day, did 140,000.
uh-huh.
Halloween Havoc that year did 175.
Wow. So 130,000 buys, how much money do they make?
That's a great question. I think at the time, pay-per-views were like $14.95 for you guys. Let me see if I can find that. So what are you thinking as you're watching this one back for the first time in a long time? I think the last time you watched it's probably in my house way back when.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking to myself, you're running these numbers by me. I'm just curious as to, it's like I didn't know till Hogan told me maybe a year ago that the pay-per-view with he and I in Orlando, Bash at the Beach,
Yeah,
with
94.
Shaq and Sherry and all that,
Yeah.
is what gave them the money to launch Nitro.
It
Did you
all
know
makes
that?
sense when you look back, doesn't it?
What's that?
It all makes sense when you look
Oh,
back.
I never knew that. I would have asked for a raise.
Let's do a
What
few questions here. Josh wants to know, hey champ, when you went to Chicago, I've heard the stories about a very connected Chicago businessman that took care of all your plans, whether it was bars or restaurants or planes. Is that true? And if
Yes.
so, what are
Bruce
some other things you did with this person?
Bruce MacArthur Wirtz.
The general,
The general. So much fun.
still a friend of this day.
Yeah, his family owns the Blackhawks and half of the world.
Charlie Thrower says, this is the match that made me a wrestling fan for the last 32 years of my life. Thank you, Mr. Flair, for making me a fan of the sport. Secondly, in your opinion, what made your chemistry with Steamboat so special?
I don't know what the words are. I guess it would just be repetition. So many times in the ring together, so often, complete trust of each other. I mean, complete trust within ourselves, with each other. Never worrying about, a lot of baby faces worry about the heel, eating them up. That would never be me. I make myself look better by getting beat up. If guys understood that today, we'd have a lot better quality matches.
I think what you're saying there's a lot of wisdom there, because really you were known as the champ who would sell the most. And Steamboat, one of the all-time great sellers. What you have here, the reason this maybe is so great is because it's two guys who are really focused on making the other guy look good, and it feels
Mhm.
like everything else just takes care of itself.
Yeah, and also he didn't mind me hitting him.
Right.
And don't think we weren't hitting each other.
Well, and let's also be honest. I've always sort of felt like the undertone of this is an athletic competition where you're not going to let him blow you up, and he's not going to let you
No,
blow him up.
that's the way we went at it.
And so I'm not going to say it's a professional rivalry, but it is an athletic rivalry of,
Yes.
hey, let's see if I can make him take a deep breath before I do.
Yeah, something like that. It never happened.
Friend of the show, Flair fan, wants to know, you've defended the world title against Steamboat hundreds of times prior to 89. Why was Chi-Town Rumble the right time to put Ricky over and give him the world title?
I don't know. I just think we needed a shot in the arm. And prior to that, I had I'll tell you about Rick, which he'll tell you too. Rick didn't like to work that much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can remember in Christmas or in 1978, we worked Christmas week and we both got a check for $8,000. Christmas week, and I went, "Oh my God, that's huge money for
Yeah.
7 days, right, or whatever it was."
Especially back then.
And he called me and said, I'm gonna quit, take some time off. I don't like working this hard." I went, "What? What are you talking about? I already spent the 8,000, sucker." We got another week like that.
That's funny, man.
That's true story. He would have never enjoyed traveling the territories. That's the main reason. He loved wrestling, but not to go through. He wouldn't want to be doing an hour in Hutchinson, Kansas, in a used car parking lot
No.
with Ricky Romero.
Hoop's dad wants to know, please share about the ending where you whispered to Tommy to raise Steamboat's hand. Your reaction was great, and that made it official. That's interesting. I don't know that I've ever paid any attention to that.
Oh, for some reason, I think Tommy was just stunned. I said, "Man, raise his hand."
Gavin says the Steamboat trilogy in 89 is still regarded as the best series of matches in American wrestling history. How do you think they compared to the series you had with Steamboat in 84? Maybe they just didn't have the same audience.
I'm sure 84 just as good, but just didn't have the same audience. We started working together when we were both in our 20s. I'm 40 here. So if this is 89, we started working with each other in 1976 or 7. What is it?
77, yeah.
Huh?
I think it's 77.
Yeah. So that's how many years later? My God, that's
12 years later.
12 years later. You can imagine how many times we worked.
Matthew Prong says, what do you consider the best match of the 89 Steamboat trilogy? Of course, he's asking about Chicago, New Orleans, and Nashville. Is this your favorite?
This or Nashville? I'd have to look at Nashville again. We just struggled to be in New Orleans. There was no crowd because they didn't advertise it.
And it cost Mr. Scott his job. Talk to me about you tumbling over there at the same time. That's got to be a pretty scary spot to do.
Yeah, and we were one of the first ones to do that, but people didn't recognize it back then. It's still a spot where you have to really trust the guy to hang on to you.
So you're going to hook your elbow, but really he's got to hang on to you and you got to hang on to him, right?
Exactly. You have to have a lot of trust. I used to do it with Barry all the time too.
The best part of this match to me, or not the best part, something that really makes this match stand out then versus now is the commentary. Jim Ross is at his all-time peak here.
Oh yeah.
I encourage fans, listen, we're giving you sort of the peek behind the curtain. Go back and watch this with JR writing the lyrics. It's phenomenal.
Oh, I know. Well, Jim, any given day could be the best of all time.
Standing suplex. We saw one of those last week with Stinger. Here's one, Ricky. Gavin says, as a fan, 89 was my favorite year of your career. Steamboat, Funk, Muda, a short but hot babyface run. Where does 89 rank for you in terms of professional and personal satisfaction?
Well, I obviously enjoyed working with him a lot, but this was the start of the Jim Hurt issues, so it probably wasn't my favorite year. I can remember someone said, "Well, Flair's 40. I mean, we got to move on."
Right.
Randy Orton's 40. I watched him last night. He's still the best worker in the business.
A classic Tommy Young push right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you probably would agree you had more fun in like 85, 86. That Horseman Rocket run.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's
In terms of fun, oh my God. I didn't know you were asking me that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ben Ledbetter says, Nate, since you were both trained by Vern Gagne, how much do you attribute Vern's training for one of the greatest trilogies between you and Steamboat? That's something I hadn't really thought about, but he was old school, man. It was all about cardio with Vern, and that probably didn't hurt, huh?
Yeah, but in terms of wrestling, I'm going to give Vern the most credit that I give Vern for guys like Rick and I is he made us tough. You could not possibly survive in this business back then if you weren't tough enough to get in it. I mean, that meant travel, work ethic, willing to give your body up to guys that didn't know what they were doing half the time. I mean, it was a whole different time. Not everybody was Ricky Steamboat.
Right.
Far from it, which I found out the first time I went on tour as a world champion. That's one of the reasons, too. Rick wouldn't have enjoyed that. Wrestling a guy that nobody knows in the world and nobody cares about for an hour is not a dream job.
Ricky Steamboat here, though, had been through, again, some trials and tribulations. He felt like he should have been in this spot a lot sooner. He leaves because of Dusty. He winds up having some success in the WWF, doesn't ever get the big belt, ultimately gets frustrated, leaves there. Now he's back with his favorite booker and his favorite opponent. And with your help, foot on the ropes there, he's going to become world champion for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Was Ricky just elated that this feels like you've reached the final level of your profession. When you become world champion, I know that it's quote unquote, just a story or what have you, but man, being the world champ, especially in 1989, it had to be a big deal.
It's a big deal anytime.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's just, I know that he had to feel like, well, number one, he needed to feel like he was the best professional wrestler in the world that day, which he was. I mean, with the NWA, you had to be really good to be the champion.
Right.
There have been a couple of guys that have been under the wire, but I mean, you're the NWA champion or early WCW days, you were really good at what you do for a living.
When you guys come back through the curtain, did you know during the match? Rajiv wants to know, when in the match did you know you had something very special, or did you know?
Oh, I felt it all the way through the match. I was excited for him. The first thing I did was get a beer and gave him a hug, and then I took off for the bar. I think Meltzer came with us. We celebrated all night.
Why would you not?
I didn't have to win or lose to celebrate.
Look, I mean, look at the front row. Everybody's on their feet right now.
Yeah,
Everybody's ready. They know they're witnessing something special here. I love the wide shot where you get to see the whole crowd standing up and getting ready.
Yeah.
I think here comes the bump, if I remember. Yeah, there we go. Down goes Tommy Young. Tommy Young was here for so many of these classic moments in your career.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Meltzer would say, there's not a lot that can be said about this, except that we went in for the weekend specifically because we expected the best match of the year, and it far exceeded our expectations. When Flair came out, he was 100% cheered and made probably the best ring entrance I've ever seen, complete with models and a trumpet player. I don't think this was acknowledged on TV, but the blonde lady who gave him the rose before the match is his real-life wife, Beth. Steamboat was cheered more than booed, although he wasn't cheered like Flair. In fact, there were sporadic chants early of Steamboat sucks, although by the end of the match, there were loud chants of Steamboat, Steamboat as he was caught in the figure four. Since he was losing the title, Flair was far more aggressive than usual. When Flair is at his peak, as he was here, there's nobody in the business even on his level. The chops both guys threw were incredible. I don't want to go overboard. There it is. There's the finish with the superlatives. Man, what a moment we just saw there.
Yeah. It was actually a good finish, too. It worked out great.
He says even the wrestlers backstage were watching like marks from what I was told, and said several things like this is the best match of the past 10 years or the best match in several years or things to that effect. The finish saw Steamboat come off the top ropes with a cross body block. Flair put referee Tommy Young and Steamboat hit both with the move, and they had both pinned for several seconds. It's too bad Teddy Long didn't get out quicker and count the fall, because then Steamboat would have not only been world champion, but also a head referee. Teddy Long came in. Flair tried to pin Steamboat using the trunks, but no go. Then Flair goes for the figure four. Steamboat cradles him in 1, 2, 3. Teddy Long raises Steamboat's hand, and then a groggy Tommy Young got up. There was this tense moment where everyone expected that dreaded Dusty finish. But Young raised Steamboat's hand, and Steamboat starts crying. Here comes the wife and son. It was amazing. 5 stars. What a moment. And we're going to hear Steamboat do a promo afterwards, but a 5-star affair. In those days, 5-star matches were really, really rare. We're hearing Jim Ross and Magnum try to recap what we've seen, but I think we're going to hear from an elated Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. We definitely want to track that audio, and then we're going to go through some more notes from Dave Meltzer, and we'll tell you what we're doing next week. But God dang, this was fun watching this old match with you.
No, it's great. Thank you.
Let's track the audio here as they're getting ready.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, was the Dragon's night.
We said if there was ever a night, if there was ever a man prepared, he was prepared tonight, and he proved it all.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to Bob Caudle, who's the new world champion.
All right, Jim, and right you are, and here he is in the dressing room. The celebration already underway, and the man who waited a long time believed in himself, Rick Steamboat, the world heavyweight champion. Rick,
you know, right now, it's hard for me to believe what I'm holding in my hands after all these years, and I don't know how many. Here comes the boys with the champagne. I don't know how many.
There he's stealing my woo.
Never.
Come on, Ricky. Come on, Ricky. All right, Rick, let's have that speech now, huh? Come on, Ricky. You're not speechless now, are you, Rick?
You know something, Bob? I just really don't know what to say. I've had a lot of encouragement from a lot of the guys and a lot of encouragement from a lot of the wrestling fans. And I think that people out there that are trying to call this match are really totally shocked. I'm shocked, and I just hope that we can put the NWA right back up there where it belongs as number one, and represent this championship belt as a champion for the people and for the guys that have backed me over the years.
Rick, if anybody can do it, Rick Steamboat can. Fans, again, congratulations to this man, the new world heavyweight champion. Here he is, Rick Steamboat.
You know something? I've got to tip my hat to Ric Flair. I got to tip my hat to Ric Flair being a great world champion. And I just wanted to tell him that I'm not going to be a closet champion, that as soon as we get the papers drawn, that he's going to be the first man to have a title shot back for this championship belt.
All right, Rick, and now let's go back to Jim Ross.
So we can cut it there. Right, my goodness, he's so excited. He's pouring champagne over his head. He didn't think about that getting in his eyes and burning the shit out of him.
I never saw that before. That's cool. That was very cool.
It was a real moment. It was really special. You can tell he's overcome with emotions. I liked it, and it felt like a major moment. Meltzer would say this: there were 24 2 counts in the Flair Steamboat match. So, of course, we're talking about false finishes. I really would have liked to have seen the first 2 matches cut down in time, and I've had the Wyndham Luger match go 5 minutes longer. Flair and Steamboat never took a deep breath. in their entire match. It could have gone a lot longer, and it's ridiculous to complain about that match. The place cheered when Steamboat won the title, and really the crowd reaction for the last 9 or 10 minutes of the match was like nothing I've ever seen. I honestly believe they would have cheered just as much had Flair won, because they were reacting to both men's offenses equally. Even though Flair is supposedly a heel, he is in reality a babyface, and he's got a unique talent of being able to get a tremendous heat out of a babyface versus babyface confrontation. At the time, after saying all this, the NWA did put on a good show, but a great match can't turn around a promotion. All the problems were still there on Monday morning, and they were there on Tuesday morning. I should mention that there were a significant amount of boos when Steamboat brought his son to the ring after the title win, and the NWA had better hope that enough fans saw the match and respected Steamboat because of how great it was, because this does have the potential to be another Ron Garvin situation where fans resent Steamboat for carrying Flair's title. And that final quarter of 87 was the beginning of the disaster that killed Jim Crockett Promotions. Also, there's a legitimate fear that Steamboat's family image persona is not what today's wrestling fans want from a world champion, and that his return has been too much of like a Bob Backlund. There's a lot of fear going into the match that Steamboat was going to get booed a lot more coming off the angle Wednesday night, but it didn't turn out too bad. So he's largely saying what we've all thought, that maybe this wasn't the right approach as far as the family man versus the playboy. But man, when the bell rang, none of that shit mattered. Did it, Rick?
No, I don't think so. It just, at that point in time, you have to, someone's got to look at the management, not the production on the point of the wrestlers.
Right.
This to me right there, the problems that went coming, going into it and going backwards, fall on the management and the people that were put in places that they didn't deserve to be.
No problems in the match. That's for sure.
No.
Just an outstanding match. Overall, what'd you prefer? We saw you wrestle Sting last week. We saw you wrestle Steamboat this week. Did you have a match that you preferred of the two?
Oh, I think that with Steamboat, it just was, it could be technically considered better, but I loved working with Sting so much. But it was with Steve, it was more like he was the superhero.
Yes.
With Ricky, was we worked like we were equal in strength, equal in ability. With Sting, it was my honor to be able to take the press slams and have him no sell and stuff like that. And a lot of guys didn't understand that. People got mad at me for doing that with him and Luger, and I would say, I was at a wrestler would say, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Because I'm on top and I got to draw money."
Right.
And but they don't have the time in the ring to be as technically strong as a guy like Ricky. That's on me. No one's going to say, "Well, he's not technically good enough to be in the ring with Flair." It's Flair's not drawing anymore. But if I'm keeping the building full, and I'm going to work with a guy that I want to, and I'm going to get, what he is, the best of what he has in him out. And I don't care what I have to do it. That's my responsibility.